All right, if you could, if everybody stand, we'll start with the pledge. Folks over by the table, we're going to do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you. You can be seated. We're going to open with a prayer, and the post commander, Al Beckel, will open us in prayer. Al?
Lord, please watch over and guide us through our meeting tonight. We thank you for the men who have generously given of their time to lead this organization. Please give us the wisdom and the patience to enlighten some of our fellow citizens who seem so anxious to give away the rights that you have given us through our founding fathers. Amen.
Welcome, everybody, to the fourth meeting of the Concerned Gun Owners of Bucks County. Let me just start with a little straw poll here. How many of you, is this your first meeting? Let me see a show of hands. Okay, about 15, 20%. How about, how many of you have been to 3 of the meetings? 2 of the meetings? 1, the first one. And then how many have been to all 4 meetings? Wow, good percentage, good showing. For those of you who are here for the first time, let me just quickly go over a couple of things here. And this is for everybody. What we're going to do tonight is really a couple of things. First of all, we'll give you 5 minutes of what Concerned Gun Owners of Bucks County is all about. And then we're going to have some guest speakers tonight. Our featured speaker is Darrell Metcalf, state representative out of Butler County, who is absolutely the most conservative state representative that we have. And we're honored to have him here tonight. We're also going to have a couple of speakers. Forgive me, Sean Soblaski. Where are you, Sean? There you are. Missed your name on this one, but there is a chart on you. Sean is running for Doylestown Township Supervisor. Tom Lingenfelder is going to speak to us for a few minutes. He's going to be running for sheriff in Bucks County. Lori Weissen is here. She's going to be speaking to us for a few minutes about safe gun handling. And then we're going to have report from the groups, the Legislative Committee, the Public Organization and Outreach Group, our Action Committee and the Communications Group. And then we're going to end the meeting with a raffle with a number of things that have been donated to the organization. First of all, who is CGOBC, Concerned Gun Owners of Bucks County? You, all of us, are Concerned Gun Owners of Bucks County. And it was originally started back in January. We're 4 months old at this point. Started by a group of about 8 or 10 of us that sat around at Mike Tilley's dining room table. Mike had called us to his house one night in January saying, something crazy is going on with a gun grab right now in the country. We need to do something to stop it. And that's what spawned our initiation. And what we believe is that we have the God-given right to defend ourselves, our family, our property, and the country. And in order to do that from all enemies, foreign and domestic, our mission is twofold. We want to educate people and move you to action, as Al said in the opening prayer, to be able to get people to understand what's happening and then to take action, because if left to our own devices, we have something that we call left ratcheting legislation. Seems like the ratchet always moves to the left and it never comes back to the right. We're going to change that. We're going to take not just a defensive position, but we're going proactive, and we're going to go after the enemy at this point and go into their territory and get in their faces the way they get in our faces. We're going to take this country back. And as it says, our tagline says on the opening chart, a peaceful line in the sand. This is our line in the sand. we will not accept anything else at this point. Jim? What we support the Constitution of the United States. We support the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Constitution. We support, and this is a proactive part on our part, we support establishing common sense school protection for our children. That includes repealing gun-free school zones. And we oppose three major things. Any further restrictions on the type of firearms or high-capacity magazines. We oppose all forms of firearm registration. Registration historically has been followed by confiscation and then genocide of that population. It's a pattern that has repeated itself. We heard numbers. Carlo Grilletto uses some numbers that range between 120 and 180 million people that were murdered by their own governments in the 20th century. We oppose any additional laws. There are enough laws. There are over 2,000 laws in the books right now concerning guns. And this is our right to not be infringed. What we're doing is opposing any forms of further legislation, and we want to hold our legislators' feet to the coals to enforce the existing gun laws that are in place. I understand in the last year or two, and somebody can help me with the numbers on it, about 15,000 violations occurred of gun laws that were in place today. And the Holder administration, if you will, only prosecuted less than 50 of them. And they won maybe 15 out of the 50 that they prosecuted. Enforce the laws that are in the books today. That's what we're looking for. And then finally, we support existing, my point, support the enforcement of the existing laws against criminals. Jim? All right, now, Daryl. There you are. Daryl Metcalf, as I said, is the most conservative representative that we had. Last Friday, a week ago, Friday and Saturday, there was a Pennsylvania Conservative Leadership Conference in Harrisburg, and I was fortunate enough to attend. And at the dinner on Friday night, they introduced about 20 state legislatures from around the state. And there were 700 people at the dinner, and you could hear applause here and a sprinkling of applause there as each member of the state representatives were introduced. When they got to Daryl, the entire audience erupted in cheers. Daryl, that's a testimony to what you have done and the leadership that you're demonstrating in the state from a conservative standpoint. Daryl's going to speak to us with some focus on House Bill 357. He has some other comments he's going to make to us, and then there'll be time for Q&A at the end. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Daryl Metcalf.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Good evening. Good to be with you all. Appreciated the invite out. It was very encouraging to hear a few months back that you all had such an active group that was starting up here in Bucks County because we need it, not just in Bucks County, but across the state. So we appreciate Steve's leadership and your board here and all of the active citizens. It was good to see the hands. It looks like some of you have been to every meeting, and it looks like you have a fair number of folks coming through that haven't been to a meeting in the past, and some new blood also. So it's important to continue to grow your grassroots influence, because that's the only way that you'll ultimately hold elected officials accountable and get them to protect your freedom, which is what it's all about, right? As Americans, land of the free, home of the brave. I mean, that's what America's supposed to be about, is the liberty that we enjoy. God-given liberty. But I grew up in upstate New York, up northwest of Syracuse, New York, in kind of a country setting, in farm community, rural community. I grew up hunting as a child and fishing, trapping. I guess I was kind of born into that culture, as my dad was even out deer hunting when I was born. So don't think my mother appreciated it, but as a deer hunter, I can appreciate it. Although I wouldn't have done that to my wife. I'd really be in trouble. But I grew up in upstate New York, and unlike so many in our nation now, I grew up in a culture where I understood that a firearm was something that could be utilized as a tool for good. And I think that's what's missing in our educational system. That's what's missing in many areas of our country, is having our young citizens learn that a firearm is really the tool of freedom, isn't it? Well, growing up in that type of a community, growing up hunting as a youngster, right out of high school, at 17 years of age, graduating from high school, I went into the United States Army and served 4 years of active duty. So I raised my hand and I swore to uphold and defend the Constitution of our United States of America. And that oath meant something to me as it does to the majority of veterans. Who here is a veteran? Well, thank you for your service. But the majority of veterans that I talk to believe that oath is an oath of a lifetime, and we really embrace it as an oath of a lifetime. And then I was honored and blessed to be elected to the General Assembly here in Pennsylvania back in 1998, and have raised my hand and swore to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Pennsylvania 8 times now that I'm into my 8th term of office here in the Pennsylvania legislature. Our oath of office is something that needs to be remembered throughout our service in office, and it's something that citizens need to remind their elected officials that they know they took an oath of office and they expect them to defend their Constitution, especially the freedoms that are announced in those documents, that are affirmed in those documents, because our government doesn't grant us freedom. We, the people, are the government. We, the people, established the government. We, the 50 states, now 50 states, but we, the state governments, created the federal government. They're not our creator, we're their creator. So we need to get things put back in the right perspective. But as one who swore to uphold and defend the Constitution, when you look at Article 1, Section 21, which is our section regarding right to bear arms in the Pennsylvania Constitution, how many are familiar with Article 1, Section 21? So a good number of you. But how many are familiar with the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution? So, see, everybody understands the Second Amendment. But as Pennsylvanians, you need to get a copy of your Pennsylvania Constitution, which, if you don't have one, I don't have them with me, but I would encourage you to contact your local state legislator, state rep, state senate, contact them both, and say, I'd like a copy of the Pennsylvania Constitution, and make them get you a copy. And read Article 1, Section 21, because the language is stronger there than the Second Amendment. And actually, the Second Amendment was modeled after our Constitution, not the other way around. So in Article 1, Section 21, it says something to the effect of, the right of the citizens to bear arms in defense of themselves and the state shall not be questioned. Shall not be questioned. Not just shall not be infringed, but shall not be questioned. And right now, we have a lot of people questioning our right to bear arms, don't we? Too many. Thought I was going to say Toomey, didn't you? Too many, including my friend Pat Toomey. So some of those individuals that are questioning it are people like Representative Ron Waters, a Democrat out of Philadelphia, who wants all of us to have carry permits, to have $1 million worth of liability insurance. And if you don't carry your insurance card on you when you get stopped, they'll confiscate your weapon. And if you don't produce it in 10 days, then you'll lose your carry permit. Pretty radical idea, right? Another bill being proposed by Representative Angel Cruz, Democrat out of Philadelphia, wants to have a firearms registry of all firearms in Pennsylvania. Another proposal represented by Senator Farnese would put in effect a state law similar to what they want to do at the federal level to ban certain types of firearms, the ones that they call assault weapons, which everybody knows even a pencil can be an assault weapon, right? It's all in the terms that they use, trying to demonize law-abiding citizens' rights and law-abiding citizens' tools of freedom. We have Democrats that are proposing that we repeal the Castle Doctrine. Who's familiar with the Castle Doctrine? We passed that last session. Governor Corbett signed into law. It's a change in the law that actually reestablishes some of our God-given rights, because ultimately those rights that are in the Constitution are not government-given, they're God-given, right? We just affirm them in the Constitutions. We affirm what God has given us. We have the right to protect ourselves, our families, our property, our nation. That's a God-given right, not government-given right. So as we see these attacks coming at us, you see kind of a trend. The majority of these proposals are being proposed by Democrats. I'm a Republican, but even some of my Republican colleagues kind of go astray. Representative Todd Stevens from down here in the southeast, he's joined in with Representative Sanacero, who's familiar with Sanacero from Bucks County, who wants to have a universal background check, like his buddy Schumer wants to have at the federal level. So we need to stop that. We need to ensure that doesn't move. It didn't move in the U.S. Senate. We're going to fight to make sure it doesn't move in the Pennsylvania House or the Pennsylvania Senate. We have had the clout to do that. We have a supermajority of legislators who have been protecting the Second Amendment, but that won't continue without your continued work and support. Now, all this goes back for me as to why are all these individuals so quick to propose legislation that violates our rights, violates our Constitution, violates their oath of office? Because when you raise your hand, you swear to uphold and defend the Constitution. So Representative Dwight Evans out of Philadelphia. Back in 1999, I was elected in 1998. 1999, we're debating an amendment that would advance frivolous lawsuits against gun manufacturers, a backdoor attempt to shut down supply to affect and infringe, question your Second Amendment, your Article 1, Section 21. During debate, I asked Representative Evans, have you read the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution? Have you read Article 1, Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution? His answer to me, I have it on DVD, no. I couldn't believe it, so much so that I, in the microphone, said, what was that? He asked me to repeat the question. Unbelievable. I repeated the question. His answer was no. A couple of weeks later during debate, he had his Constitution out sitting in front of him. Didn't know if he'd read it, but he had at least had it there so he could read it. But the problem is that I don't think he is the exception. I think he's the rule for the majority of elected officials in this nation, not just in Pennsylvania. But I think the majority of elected officials get elected. They think that's all they had to do. They raise their hand. They swear an oath. Some of them with no intention on upholding and defending those documents that so many have fought and died for, to protect the American way of life, because that's where the American way of life is laid out, is in the Constitution. Now, when you go into service, you don't go into service to protect your car, your home, your property necessarily, your family necessarily, although you're protecting all those things. But you're swearing to uphold and defend the Constitution. You're swearing to uphold and defend the American way of life. And for somebody to go into office and not even read what they've sworn to uphold and defend is offensive, isn't it? And I think that's why you see so many proposals that are advanced or proposed because of these individuals who either are ignorant, which is a small number of them, of what the Constitution says, but I think even more so, I think they're arrogant and that they think that they can swear to uphold and defend the Constitution and that they can get away with not even reading it. Because these aren't dumb people that get into office normally. You might think they are based on some of the votes that they cast, but they're really not. So is it ignorance or arrogance? And I think they're ignorant because they are arrogant. And we need to demand better. We need to demand that our elected officials actually read the documents that they've sworn to uphold and defend and actually attempt to defend them and not violate them continually, these types of proposals. Well, when you look at the individuals that are causing the problem, it isn't just at the state level, of course. A lot of the outrage amongst the citizenry, as you know, has come from a lot of the federal attempts to violate our rights. And I've been carrying this news clipping around